This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Tonight in the headlines, the trauma experienced by children was so severe that they had to undergo debriefing sessions after witnessing the violent raid of heavily armed authorities who raided the religious compounds of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ on June 10. The children living inside the religious compounds are still shaken and traumatized 2 weeks after the inhumane raid by officers who were supposed to be their protectors. In other news, Maisug protesters in the USA are appealing to the United Nations to investigate the current government of the Philippines. Several Filipinos and Filipino Americans are angry, frustrated, and alarmed, prompting them to appeal to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for an immediate inquiry into the systematic human rights violations allegedly done by the Marcos administration in recent months. Also tonight, expelled Congressman Teves is set to return home after a Timor Leste court granted the extradition request of the Philippines. Teves has been under the custody of Timor Leste since March after his arrest based on the Interpol red notice issued against him. For our top global story, Sudan's forgotten war. More than 14 months have passed since the conflict broke out, and now the United Nations is appealing to the warring factions of African country to stop weaponizing starvation as millions of innocent civilians are at risk. And Japan's Emperor and Empress visit King Charles and were given the full splendor at the Buckingham Palace state banquet. The Japanese royal's trip was originally planned in 2020 but was postponed due to the pandemic. This symbolic visit reportedly seeks to deepen cultural, military, and scientific ties between Japan and the UK. I am Franco Baranda. Newsline World starts now. The state chairman of MNLF in Davao City is outraged over the alleged violent police raid on the religious compounds of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ. For the MNLF state chairman, the police violent actions, if true, would be considered a grave violation of Islamic doctrine. Here's the report.
As far as the Islamic doctrines is concerned regarding warfare, itong jihad fisabilillah, attacking civilians is haram.
The actions by the police at the Kingdom of Jesus Christ religious compounds in Davao City are seen as unacceptable and a serious violation of the Muslim doctrine. On June 10, police forces reportedly stormed the religious compounds with excessive force, causing intense fear and trauma among missionaries. Armed with high-caliber firearms, their approach appeared more suited to war. MNLF Davao State Chairman Aziz Monk Olamit strongly denounced the government's handling of Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. He also commended KOJC missionaries for their steadfast resolve despite the ongoing threat of police intervention at their religious compounds.
Sa lahat ng mga member dyan sa KOJC, saludo ako sa inyo lahat for your sacrifices. Sa ginawa ninyo day and night to protect the kingdom at saka kay pastor, dahil minahal ni pastor ang lahat ng tao niya sa KOJC at binalik niyo sa kanya ang pagmamahal. Talagang nakakatouch. Napaluha tayo sa sakripisyo ng mga lahat ng mga member dyan ng KOJC. Tawagin natin itong mga debuti Sana ganyan ang taong bayan ng Pilipinas. Magsakripisyo sila. Despite of heavy rain, nandyan sila.
Yes.
That's a sign of sincerity. Talagang totoo sila.
KOJC missionaries are experiencing sleepless nights and they hardly have any rest due to constant surveillance and the growing presence of checkpoints by soldiers and police near their religious compounds. They remain vigilant amid the threat of another attack. The MNLF state chairman couldn't help but shed tears over the actions of Marcos Jr.'s administration towards his dear friend Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy.
Para sa aking kaibigan na si Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, you are still presumed innocent. Yung maggawa ng mga stories o fitna issues against you, which is not proven, you are still presumed innocent. At hindi naman ako naniwala talaga dyan. As a Muslim, we salute you and we are always at your side. Just be strong. Ang lahat na ito ay huhupa din. May hanggadan din ang lahat ng ito. Huwag kang mag-alala, nandito pa rin kami, lahat ng kapatid mo. We are still on your side.
Monk is also calling on those responsible for the recent police violence, reminiscent of what former President Rodrigo Duterte termed the Day of Infamy.
Matats ang the entire organization ng PNP.
Yeah.
Na siguro, do not be enticed by money, whatever, ano diyan.
Tama.
Kasi, pamilyo, kapatid din niyo yan, pamilya din ninyo ang mga tao yan, they're both humans. Kamagwak, hindi natin alam, kamag-anak din niyo yan ang nandyan sa loob dyan.
Exactly.
Maawa tayo. Hindi lang yan, just be human. Yun na lang, magpakatao na lang tayo.
For God and my beloved Philippines, Franco Baranda, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, the man once thought to be evil by the Bagobo Klata tribe in Sitio Causayan, Calinan, Davao City turns out to be the bridge to the tribe's sought-after belief. Who exactly is Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy in the eyes of the indigenous people? Let's delve more into this with Hannah Jane Sancho.
For many years, the armed communist terrorists CPP, NPA, NDF deceived many of our indigenous brothers and sisters from the Bagobo Klata tribe, residing in Sitio Causayan, Calinan, Davao City. One of them is Girly Carillo.
Actually, ma'am, nagbisita lang po ko sa ilada sa Julo sa 2015. Kay gusto lang ko matanawan ng mga dagway sa NPA ba. Yeah. Pag-abot na ko dito is, gi-organize na ko nila. Tapos wala na ko nila pauli. So ang pasalig is sabay na daw may mga 1 week or 15 days. Pwede na ko nila paulion. So ang naitabo is nadugay man ko sa ila kay siyempre gitagaan ko nila tahas. Usa ko ka medical sa maong grupo.
Girly's supposed 15-day stay in the NPA camp extended to 3 years. Benji Jarog comes from a well-known family in the Bagobo Klata, Sitio Causayan. Many members of the Jarog family were part of the armed struggle of the New People's Army. But when asked if the NPA helped his family and tribe, this was his response.
Kami na sulod magyud mi sa kuan NPA yun sa unang panahon. So among nakita dito nga parang wala mangyapon siya kuan baguhan kay gigamit ra gyapon ta sa kuan ba sa kuan pa nagisa ra gyapon ta sa sarili nato nga mantika na.
In fact, the CPP, NPA, NDF planted many negative thoughts about Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy in the minds of the Bagobo Klata tribe.
Si pastor daw dili mayong tao. Sa mga silingan po nako ana po lang kahadlok. Dire ba sa sulod kung nga nasa mga kahadlok sa una nga na daw dire ang mga tao nga kanang isog.
Kalangi kayo naman gud kami dito mi sa pakigbisog nga NPA. So dito ba nga nahibal-an na mo nga siya nahimong dautan no, sa among tan-aw.
The perception of the Bagobo Klata tribe changed when they had the chance to know Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy better, which eventually led to a healing and reconciliation ritual. The ceremony took place on June 5, 2022, symbolizing unity. It also marked the beginning of the IP community's freedom from the deceptive communist terrorist group, CPP, NPA, NDF. Meanwhile, the IB community awarded the title of Dato Pamulingan to Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy on March 6, 2023. The honorary title was given to Pastor Apollo by the Mindanao Indigenous Peoples Conference for Peace and Development. Pastor Apollo is close to our indigenous brothers and sisters because they were part of a spiritual journey when he was called by the Almighty Father and underwent rigorous training in the mountains of Kitbug and Tamayong.
Personally akong kita kay pastor, maayo nga tao, buutan.
Subay po sa akong nasaksihan sa panaglingkuray, panagkatubangay, maayo siya. Dili ingon nga tining ako istorya nga tinud-anay ning istorya ako yun, no? Nga si pastor maayo man Jesus sa tribo. Gani daghang siya natabangan sa mga tribo.
Na member ko. So, diha na ko nasuta. Katong gipang dala nga isyu sa amo sa una. Dili da ito tinuod, ma'am. Pagdaot lang gyud ito sa pangalan ni pastor. So, dili gyud ito tinuod. Once nga diha nga na member ko ni pastor, nakita na ko diha kang pastor ang iyang pagkamaayo. Maayo siya nga tao, dili daotan iyang tumong kun dili para gyud sa kaluwasan sa kalag sa mga tao. Para sa kalag yun ang iyang tuyo. Tingami sa mga isyo nga ingon ana nga gihatagan si pastor sa kadaghanan nga isyo nga mga sala nga sa ako lang kabahin anong tagaan man si pastor og sala nga wala man gani nagsulod og pamilya.
Meanwhile, Rene Suhat, a member of the Bagobo Klata, who has been with Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy on Glory Mountain for almost a decade, insists that the accusation against the good pastors are baseless.
Sa akong pagtanaw ka ng naay makauban ni pastor diri, nindot. Pag-abot sa side sa mga bata, ingon sa amahan gyud si pastor sa mga bata. Nagtupod sa mga babae. So, murag inahan, amahan siya nga manudlo ana. Oo. Nga hangtod nga miabot sa amo nga isip mga hamtong na. So mo nang kanang ingon nila nga dili may si pastor. Para sa ako dili na tinuod. Pangdaot na kang pastor. Pangdaot na. Kay kami pila na sulod anang 8 ka tuig na. Wa gid koy nakita ng pastor nga nanudlo nga pangawat mo, pagpatay mo, panulis mo wala. Kay dili kana ang iyang misyon. Kun dili ang iyang misyon mutudlo sa pagkamatarong.
Even Henry Ombol, who has been with Pastor on Glory Mountain for many years and has been persuaded many times to leave the good pastor's side because attacks on the KOJC religious compounds would happen someday. Why didn't he leave Pastor Apollo?
Tugod kay dili basta-basta biyaan ako siya. Kay tungod kay ang kaluwasan manggod una-una magnasabtan ang kaluwasan sa akong kalag. Mo na akong gibarugan una-una. Ang pag-abri ni pastor sa akong salabutan nga nakaila ko nga naay amahan apoy anak, appointed son. So mo nang giingon nako na mamatay og babuhi, ingko amahan, mo to ako gipasilihan kanunay. Kay nakaila ko kang pastor.
The goodness of Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy or Dato Pamulingan is forever etched in the hearts and minds of the indigenous people from the Bagobo Klata tribe. No accusations and slander by those who wish to bring down Pastor Apollo and the Kingdom Nation will change how they view the good pastor. The goodness and love they see from Pastor Apollo prevail above all. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SM9 News.
Illegal raid and forced eviction by armed PNP SAF and CIDG in Sitio Kitbug, Sarangani Province on June 10, blamed for the death of an IP elder and the hospitalization of a resident. The details from Jean Domingo.
Sitio Kitbog, Malungon, Sarangani Province is a quiet place where some of our indigenous brothers and sisters reside, peaceful and serene. But on June 10, around 3 o'clock in the morning, armed members of the Philippine National Police Special Action Force and Criminal Investigation and Detection Group shattered and disrupted the peaceful community of indigenous people in Sitio Buyu-Buyu in Biangan, areas outside the Kingdom of Jesus Christ religious compounds, communities that should not have been raided. They knocked and forced residents out of their homes, including children and elderly individuals with illnesses, causing them intense fear. Due to the incident, one IP family was severely affected by the tragic experience of the armed law enforcers. A day after the raid by the PNP staff and CIDG, the father of a Bland tribesman passed away.
Wala na siya mukaon, wala na sa mo kape. Kay utob sa iyang kwan, di na gyud siya mo kwan kay murag epekto nito siya atong sa kadlawon pa nga maiyang tulog nakamata siya. Tungod sa pagsulod nila sa mga balay.
So I can stand on mountains. Raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shore.
According to his sibling, after the armed law enforcers arrived at their father's house, he experienced fear. He shook uncontrollably to the point where he could no longer eat.
Pag ari sa mga pulis, pagka buntag ana, naptan mo gud sa nagbuntag diri no. Mo to gi kuan, gitimplahan ako kape unya biskwit. Di naman mo kuan, di na mo inom og kape, ginan ako sa nga noon sa day ka pa ana sa nga sige pa man tug kuan mangurog sa yan ako sa nga noon sa day ka pa ana sa nga nahadlok ko. Ginan ako sa nga nung mahadlok man ka dili man ikaw irang halaptan. Ana lagi ra nga basig makitaan daw nila si pastor. Yan ako nga dili dito nila makitaan pa. Imposible makitaan to nila. Matugi ka nato na nagyuto mo kaon. Matong pagkaduha ka adlaw, mato wala na. Alas 8 sa gabi wala na gyud siya.
According to the family of the deceased, they were shown no mercy as heavy firearms were displayed, and the elderly, even sick residents were forced out of their homes, causing their father to experience intense fear and shock, which they claimed caused his death.
Pero diskumpiyado gyud ko ato ba kay murag gikan atong kamatan sa kuang papa tong ni ari ang mga pulis. Sige gyud ko huna-huna ginanako nga katong wala pay pulis no kay usog pa man tumukaon mo inom og kape mo tingog ana sa nga kape wala mo'y kape. Sige siyag paningog mangayop kape nya katong ni ari ang mga kuan gikan ato murag di na mangayop kape. Nakahuna-huna gyud ko bagay. Nakakuan ko ingon ako huna-huna nga dili siguro sila maari dira murag di gyud to makuan ako bababa kay ikan ato marag nakuyawan to siya ba sa kahadlok. Nahadlok to siya.
Furthermore, they cannot accept the injustice that was committed against them. Still, because of the teachings and preaching of Pastor Apollo, they decided it would be better to remain silent.
Motong nagsiging ingon ng tigulang. Murag na stress siya, murag or nahadlok. Motong dili maabtan og duha ka adlaw magduha yun sa adlaw. Motong nga gi wa na siya mukaon, wala na sa mo kape. Kay utob sa iyang kwan di na gyud siya mo kwan kay murag epekto nito siya atong sa kadlawon pa nga maiyang tulog nakamata siya. Tungod sa pagsulod nila sa mga balay. Ato nga tayo. Oh, na. Full batter gyud. Ang pusil, di basta-basta nga pusil. Grabe bala, pating daghana. Una siya nga ko dako yung kahubos nako. Ingnan ako kung manghod kung wala pa ta saging harian. Ingon ani lang ning mga kuanan ni, di man nato na sila atrasan. Kay tungod kay pastor, nagbag uta. Kamao na ta mo respeto, kamao na ta mo istorya, ug unsa ang dapat natong himuon pinaagi sa gisulti sa anak nang natanong sa ato ang kasing-kasing atong himuon. Karon yun ko, gitandog nila ang atong garbo. Pero bisan unsa ilang himuon, dili na tamo apil ana nga na kuan. Magpahiubos lang ta.
As if this was not enough, after their father's death, his wife was hospitalized.
Isa po na si ate nimo. Isa po na si ate nimo. Kay kato nga time gipakapin ako ang mga sundalo, gipakapin ako sila. Siya ang mag-init og tubig dito sa kusina. Sige sagingon sa kuha ngano man ni. Ngano ingani man ta. Oh. Buot pasabot hadlok siya. Oh. Buot pasabot hadlok si Mrs. ato nga time. Nganong isudlod man mi, nganong halughog ang among buong balay nga wala man mi sala, wala man mi gihimo, wala man mi record bisag asa nga lugar wala mi record. Motong isa nga nagtanong ko sa una-una, nagtanong ako sa una-una, nganong inunani man dyan? Nga si pastor tungod sa kayo ni pastor, si pastor mangyod ang giusig, si pastor mangyod ang ingani nga naapil pag yun mi. No sa'yo nagaingon ko nga, ay pagsulay rin siya mo ang pagtuo. Labi na karon, wa pa nalubong kong papa, siya na stroke na po.
He couldn't understand why this was happening or what they did to deserve this from those who should have protected their community. He added that they didn't violate any laws to deserve what they experienced.
Oh, sa tanan nga mga balay sa amo ang gamay nga komunidad, gipang sulod. Oh, motong gamay na ko nga nahiubsan sa ako nga sarili bago ko nagingon nga unsa may sala namo sa gobyerno nganong giinani man mi. Oh, ngawa man sila'y authorize nga ingwan-ingon ni so siya lang sulod na mong balay, wala may record sa barangay, wala may record sa muang poblasyon o sa muang komunidad. Nganong giingunani man mi sa ako ang pamilya.
Meanwhile, one of the legal counsels of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ confirmed the illegality of the actions carried out by the PNP staff and CIDG against the IP community.
First of all, I want to ask a question. Did they show itong mga bahay-bahay na ito na meron silang search warrant? Kasi kung hindi sila nakapagpakita ng search warrant, then they had no authority to ask the people to get out of their house and sila ay pumasok sa bahay para mag-search. And then kung pinalabas yung mga tao at pinagtatanong kung alam ba nila kung saan si pastor at kung saan si pastor at 4 a.m., then that is already coming under interrogation. Bakit sila nagtatanong na ganyan if they had no search warrant against these people? And for each bahay na pinasok ko nila, that is again a violation, one count, one violation ho yan. So kung 10 bahay ang pinasok nila, 10 violation ho yan. Kasi again, we go back to the constitutional provision. Everyone has the right to remain secure in their homes against unreasonable searches and seizures.
He stated that if there was anything he could do, he would seek justice, not only for his family but also for his fellow indigenous people who also experienced trauma because of what happened.
Ang ako ang masulti diha sa kanang ilang gihimo sa amua. Kung nalang ko'y mahimo, pailan ako silang kaso. Bisag nga ni IP ko, mangita akong katulong nako, mangita akong katabang para mapailan ako silang kaso. Nganong himo nila sa kuha nga to atong ilang himo nga wala man ko na-appeal sa kaso sa ubang tao. Mo na akong plano, mo na ang nasulod sa una-una. Pailan ako silang kaso, pati ang mga bata nga ilang gipang pagawas, buntag sayo, nagakurog. Tungod sa kadlo, kung mga pagumangkon na ko si Babaw, pati itong akong gison kita nimo sa video, pati itong hadlo ka. Kanang ang iyang tingog, murag kuan kanang sa tawag murag naghilak nga nagsulti tungod siyang hadlo. Nganong naman ni sundalo, nganong ingani man ni wa man tay sala atua.
The illegal search operations conducted by the PNP staff and CIDG not only showed their disregard for the rights of peaceful indigenous Filipinos, but this also proves the current government's weakness and lack of justice. For God and our beloved country, the Philippines, I am Jean Domingo, your citizen correspondent in Davao Region.
The Department of Justice confirms that Timor Leste has granted the extradition request made by the Philippine government for expelled Congressman Arnie Teves. According to the statement, this information was relayed to the DOJ by the Attorney General of Timor Leste. The agency added that they are now looking forward to the arrival of Teves so that he may finally face the charges against him in the local courts. Teves is facing multiple murder cases after the assassination of Negros Oriental Governor Roel de Gamo on March 2023. Hakbang ng Maisug USA takes matters into their hands by gathering in a prayer rally outside the United Nations headquarters in New York City to petition for an international inquiry on recent events back home that violate human rights. Valerie Olas reports.
Our gathering be peaceful, not disrupted, and our grievances be addressed.
Hakbang ng Maisug USA and Sara Duterte supporters New York are making their silence heard right here in front of the United Nations headquarters in response to the political tension back in the Philippines. Filipinos and Filipino Americans are expressing their anger, frustration, and concern for the future of the Philippines in a prayer rally clad in white shirts, waving Philippine flags with signs, carrying their messages right across the United Nations headquarters here in Manhattan, New York.
We are here, behind us is the United Nations, because we want their intervention to our country. This is about awareness, na malaman sa buong bayan natin, sa buong Pilipinas, kahit saan sa mundo na ito. Tayong Pilipino, dapat mahalin ang Pilipinas, lalo na ngayon. We are in a wrong government right now. Okay?
That is why international human rights lawyer and Hakbang ng Maisug USA president, Reverend Arnedo S. Valera, released a letter directly addressed to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to petition for immediate international inquiry into the systematic human rights violations by the Marcos administration over the last few months.
Dear Secretary General Guterres, the subject is petition for immediate international inquiry into systematic human rights violations by the Philippine government.
Dinadala namin ngayon itong ginagawang pang-aabuso ng kapangyarihan ng ating kapulisan. Kasama na ang Philippine government kasi silang nagbigay ng basbas dyan sa United Nations, no? At kami ay gumawa ng isang matapang na liham na address kay Secretary General ng United Nations si Antonio Guterres.
A considerable portion of the letter addresses Maisug's concern over the use of excessive force by various police and military personnel who were simultaneously deployed in Four Kingdom of Jesus Christ or KOJC compounds and properties in the early hours of June 10, 2024. The letter points out that the disproportionate use of armed forces violates the KOJC members' religious freedoms and instills distress, fear, and confusion amongst KOJC missionaries, including women and children.
The inquiry can help prevent the abuses, the human rights abuses, especially the abuses they are doing to the KOJC, the Kingdom of Jesus Christ. They went without a proper legal paper, and then a battalion of soldiers went into the premises of KOJC. That's a grave violation of human rights.
Aside from the harassment complaint on behalf of the KOJC, the petition letter also addresses the increase of restrictions from free speech, peaceful rally, and freedom of assembly for movements such as the Maisug rallies.
We also call for the resignation of President Marcos Jr., whose governance has led our nation towards the brink of war and jeopardized the safety and well-being of its citizens. It is time for a leadership that prioritizes peace, justice, and prosperity of all Filipinos.
Yes. What the other countries who are in wars now are suffering, like Ukraine. You see Zelensky? He is very healthy and very robust. I mean, nothing is happening to him, but his people are dying. So that would happen to the Philippines. The Marcos family will be okay, but the Filipino people will be suffering.
Sana itong presidente natin ngayon, mahirap, alam ko mahirap na siya magbago, pero sana pinakamaganda para sumaya ang buong Pilipinas. Mag-resign na siya, kasama niya yung asawa niya. At saka itong mga nambudol sa atin na mga nagnanakaw sa gobyerno. Tigilan na. Magkaroon na kayo ng konting puso, konting kaluluwa.
From what began as a small movement for peace, national security, and justice is now an unstoppable force made up of ordinary Filipinos who all share an extraordinary love for the land that they call home.
Mr. President, oo, sinisigaw ng marami na mag-step down na kayo. You're already going into your 2 years. If you could still work it out, please, tulungan nyo mga Pilipino at tuparin nyo ang mga pangako nyo sa Pilipino. Tama na mo ng biyahe, Mr. President.
Maisug USA and Sara Duterte supporters in New York continue to push for transparency and accountability amid these ongoing tensions and hope for a clearer future for the country. Reporting from New York, I am Valerie Olas, your Citizens correspondent at SMNI News USA.
The explosive announcement of Vice President Sara Duterte recently caused a disarray in the world of politics when she said 3 Dutertes will run for senator in the upcoming 2025 midterm elections. For a political commentator, the critics of the Duterte apparently have no idea what they are going to do, adding that others are surely having sleepless nights in planning their next move. This report from Sara Santos.
Ang pasabog na ito, matatawag mo ng pasabog, ay isang malaking sakit ng ulo na binigay ni Vice President Sara sa lahat ng mga barako na nambubuli sa kanya, no, at sa pamilyang Duterte. Sapagkat ngayon ay talagang magugulumihan sila. Sinong babantayan nila? Si Sara ba? Si Digong ba? Si Pulong? O si Baste? No? All of them must have been caught flat-footed.
Who among the Dutertes will their critics look out for now? Because 3 members of the Duterte family will apparently run for senator in the upcoming 2025 midterm elections. Who would have thought that 3 Dutertes would run for senator next year anyway? It's no secret to the public that the Duterte brand of leadership is far different from others. For political commentator Jay Sonza, being unpredictable is a trademark of the Dutertes.
Kung sanay ka sa 1 step ahead, sanay sila sa 10 steps ahead. 10 moves kumbaga sa larong address o chess. Kaya hindi mo mabasa, hindi ka nila nabasa na magre-resign ka bigla. Ginigipit siya, gusto mag-resign. Nung mag-resign, nagkagulo sila. Bakit mag-resign? Diba? Tapos mag-resign siya, walang dahilan. Hindi siya nagsabi kung anong dahilan niya. Basta sabi niya, may dahilan ako pero total, yan ang gusto niyo, di mag-resign.
To recall, the Department of Education under the leadership of Vice President Sara Duterte has proven to be the most trusted government agency in the Philippines based on survey results. And Sonza commented that Vice President Duterte is the flag carrier of the Marcos Jr. administration, saving the image of the government since the trust and approval ratings of those in the highest positions continue to slip, including that of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Many of the Vice President's supporters are calling for her to break free from the Marcos Jr. administration so that her ratings do not get affected. Meanwhile, in the event that Vice President Duterte's announcement that Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte will run for president in the 2028 elections comes true and wins, that would make him the youngest president in Philippine history at the age of 41. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Sara Santos, SMNI News.
An international lawyer is questioning the country's leadership following Moody's Analytic report that the Philippine economy is the worst underachiever in ASEAN. For attorney Harry Roque, it seems that the Philippines is losing its way as the current government is not addressing the problems head-on, such as the high prices of basic commodities. Here's the report from Carla Beliana.
Where is the government leadership? This is the question of former presidential attorney Harry Roque following the release of a report by Moody's Analytics, a research firm in the Pacific region. Moody's reported that the Philippine economy is the worst underachiever in the entire Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. The report also states that the economy in the Asia-Pacific region is growing fast compared to other regions in the world. But when it comes to GDP, it is still low compared to pre-pandemic levels. Based on Moody's Analytics, the Philippine economy is considered the worst underachiever in ASEAN, along with Thailand with a gross domestic product or GDP below 10% compared to pre-pandemic levels. For former presidential spokesperson Attorney Roque, this was not the case with the Philippine economy during former President Rodrigo Duterte's administration.
Sa katunayan po, kailan lang, no, sabi ng Moody's, yung rating agency, ang Pilipinas po ngayon ang number 1 na underperforming economy. Panahon ni Presidente Duterte, ang kaparehong Moody's, ang sabi is, the Philippines is the darling economy of Asia. So from the darling economy to the most underperforming economy. So nasan po ang liderato ngayon dyan? May krisis na po ngayon. Kasi we are now the most underperforming economy in Asia. Hindi ba ho krisis na yan?
Because of this, Roque couldn't help but say that the Philippines seemed to be losing its way under the Marcos administration.
Naliligaw na tayo ng landas. At gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, hindi lang natin kinakailangan ng presidente sa issue ng China, bagamat yan po ang pinaka-urgent, no? Pinaka-importante na dapat bigyan ng atensyon ng presidente. Yung iba pang problema natin sa patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng bilihin, sa kakulangan ng trabaho at mababang sweldo, kinakailangan din natin ng presidente. Dahil hanggang ngayon po, wala pong leadership na nakikita tayo para bigyan ng solusyon itong mga problema. We have a crisis of leadership. Ang daming problema, walang tumutugon. At kung ano-anong inaatupag. Yan po talaga ang problema natin sa bayan natin ngayon.
Roque also couldn't help but criticize the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, for making life harder for farmers, which greatly affects the Philippine economy.
Dahil dati na mataas ang taripa, nahihirapan na sila. Dahil din sa smuggling. Ngayon, bukod pa sa smuggling, ginawasan pa ang taripa. Lalo na talaga silang maghihirap yan. No? At dahil ang ating ekonomiya ay nakaangkulo pa rin sa agrikultura, habang lumalala ang paghihirap ng mga magsasaka natin, lumalala rin ang ating ekonomiya. Wala po tayong bagong initiative sa economic front para tayo nga po ay makabangon. Pinalala pa nila ang kahirapan ng ating mga magsasaka na siya naman po nagpapatakbo natin ekonomiya.
On the other hand, Roque is also dismayed by the weakening of the peso as investors lose confidence amid the alleged leadership crisis gripping the country. For God and my beloved Philippines, Carla Abellana, SMNI News.
Up next, the evolution of artificial intelligence is causing companies to lay off their workers. In the Philippines, the Department of Labor and Employment admits that many Filipinos are losing their jobs to AI. But will this significantly impact the country's labor sector in the future? We'll find out more about this later on. And Thailand Supreme Court upholds the death sentence against an ex-minister for the premeditated murder of a construction tycoon nearly a decade ago. According to the Thai Supreme Court, the car crash in which the tycoon died was not an accident but was instead staged to look like one. Newsline World will be back after the break.
Abangan ng Banateros tuwing Lunes hanggang Huwebes, live dito lang sa SMNI.
Yan ang Banateros, walang inuurungan. Pag tama palakpakan, pag mali ay babanatan. Yan ang Banateros.
Kung akong tatanungin, kahit saang aspeto, gusto ko garantisado. Metikuloso akong tao, kaya gusto ko lahat maayos at sigurado. Lahat quality. Yung hindi ako makukompromiso, pero sulit ang presyo. Ganyan ang Clean Fuel. Kaya dito, panatag ang loob ko.
Magandang umaga po, sir. Full tank po.
Full tank. Kung gusto mo ng dekalidad na gasolina pero sulit ang halaga, mag-Clean Fuel ka.
In the spiritual, you don't have to have a doll in order to become a witch. When you psychologically hurt someone, you are a witch. You know how a witch is hurt spiritually? A cold shoulder, mental abuse, physical abuse is witchcraft. Soul winners are not like that. Soul winners are winning souls through love, peace and joy, meekness, gentleness, goodness, kindness. Whether you are on the first, second, or third level of spiritual growth, we are all participating in the same body. We have a care for everyone in the body. Whether you are part of the feet, which is the lowest of all, whether you are in the hand, or whether what part you are, one to another, there is participation of love. That's why Jesus Christ said, love one another, that the world may know you are my disciples. There are so many who question me, why are you called the appointed Son of God? Isn't there only one Son of God? Don't you know that all of you are sons of God? Children of God, all of you. Children of God, sons and daughters of the Father Almighty. When the devil came and took over, we became children of the devil without us knowing it. That's why he sent his son there in the Middle East. His name is Jesus Christ, to be crucified on the cross so that you and I will become like him. I am from a Gentile nation. You are from a Gentile nation. My father and mother are pure human beings. He saved me first so that he could save you through me. He is looking for a body where he can dwell here on this earth that is not religious, that cannot be used by religion alone. He alone can use that body. And I told him when he called me, Father, I'm here, use me. And I came here, and the Father is using me. I am not being used by religion. I'm not being used by denomination. I'm being used by the Father Almighty. And He sent me here to tell you that this is now the time for you to become sons and daughters of God, just like me. children will grow up and bring the joy, the love, the peace, and compassion to the whole world. We only have one planet. We only have one Earth. And I hope that this new generation of children that we have reached out will become millions and billions and bring peace on Earth. Bring peace to humanity.
Some Filipinos have lost their jobs after being replaced by artificial intelligence, as said by the Department of Labor and Employment. Should all Filipino workers be alarmed? Find out Dole's response from Jason Rubrico's report.
During the National Employment Summit at Manila Hotel, the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, acknowledged that one of the challenges facing the labor sector today is the integration of artificial intelligence. Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma admitted that some Filipinos have already lost their jobs due to AI.
Mayroon na, nakikita na rin natin po ito na hindi lamang siguro sa mga matatawag natin elementary or manual occupations, no? Kasi itong unang maapektuhan ng employment o pagkakaroon ng artificial intelligence. Kaya
Based on DOLE's data, some companies have reduced their workforce by up to 81 employees from January to April 2024 due to the use of labor-saving devices. Most affected establishments come from the sectors of service activities, professional, scientific and technical service activities, and administrative and support service activities. According to Laguesma, it is undeniable that any technological advancement will inevitably lead to job displacement. The question remains, should there be cause for concern?
hindi natin sasabihin na walang dapat na paghandaan o pangambahan. Subalit dapat nating sigurong tanggapin, naririyan na ito, no? At kinakailangan siguro ang ating gagawing hakbangin ay hindi yung palayo, kundi lapitan natin, tignan natin, pagtulong-tulungan natin. At iyang isa sa mga kadahilanan kung bakit itong National Employment Summit ay ginagawa natin ngayon.
DOLE ensures sufficient jobs amid emerging new technologies. Laguesma emphasized that the rise of modern technology will also create opportunities for new jobs.
Pero meron ding mga opportunities o mga bagong pwede nating makita na mga hanap buhay. Kaya mahalaga na ang ating pakikipag-ugnayan sa mga namumuhunan, sa mga industry association ay tuloy-tuloy nating gawin para yung kanilang manpower requirements matugunan natin.
Meanwhile, DOLE, the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, and other private companies signed a memorandum of agreement to ensure an adequate supply of quality jobs amid emerging new technologies.
Hindi lamang simpleng trabaho, di kalidad, disente, remunerative, at siyempre nabanggit din kanina, dapat pati green jobs, no, na medyo tumutukoy doon po sa mga kaganapan sa ating kalikasan o sa environment.
For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico. SMNI News.
Civil defense official admitted today that Metro Manila is not yet prepared for the big one, a magnitude 7 or higher earthquake. Find out why in Almar Farsuelo's report.
The Office of Civil Defense, or OOCD, has renewed its call for various agencies, local governments, the private sector, and every citizens to prepare for the possibility of the big one, a magnitude 7 or higher earthquake hitting Greater Metro Manila and nearby provinces. OCD Administrator Undersecretary Ariel Nepomuceno emphasized this at a symposium held at Camp Aguinaldo on Thursday, attended by representatives from local government units, government agencies, and the private sector. During the meeting, Undersecretary Nepomuceno revealed that a 2014 study predicts more than 30,000 fatalities if such a powerful earthquake were to occur.
So what is our situation with regard to the projected 7.2 magnitude earthquake? Doon sa projections, kagaya niyan, iba-iba pa nga yung projections. Way back 2014, it was funded by JICA, friends from Japan, funded the study along with PBOLS. And in that study, it was projected that probably, if this earthquake will really happen, around that time, 30 to 32,000 casualties would be incurred. Napakarami nun, napakarami.
However, despite numerous discussions and plans in various meetings, Nepomuceno admitted that Filipinos are still not ready if a magnitude 7 or higher earthquake strikes.
The people are expecting that we are very prepared. The communities are thinking that we are fully prepared to respond. But ask ourselves, are we really that ready? I'm sorry to say that my personal answer is not yet. We have a lot of things in place, but overall, not yet.
Nepomuceno explained that the sincerity to address calamities is not a priority for many Filipinos.
Ang malaking problema sa disaster management is this. This is not in the priority list of our people. Ibig sabihin, ano ba ang mga importante pag nag-survey ka? What are the most important concerns or issues that bother Filipinos? Disasters or calamities is not in the top of their minds.
Additionally, he admitted that even some in the private sector or organizations do not cooperate on the issue.
It is very difficult to do our mission if in the first place, all those who are involved in the preparations and response are not aware, fully aware of the role of each other and how each agency or organization will react or in the first place, prepare.
Part of the OCD's plan is to check the integrity of each building to ensure compliance with the building code.
Sana ganito talaga yung ating kaisipan, iisang kaisipan. Number one, that we really have to do. We have to follow the strict provisions, the safety provisions of the building code and the structural code of the Philippines. Yung mahigpit talaga. We have to follow strictly the safety provisions of the building code. Kahit anong gawin natin paghahanda, yung duck cover and hold natin, kapag ang mga tao ay nando sa isang struktura na mahina, yun na ang magiging libingan nila.
To further raise awareness about the dangers of the big one, the OCD will hold regular face-to-face meetings and discussions on this critical issue.
We lack in practicing or using existing partnerships. And we definitely lack possible partnerships, especially with the private sector, because the government cannot do it alone. The would-be victims are our countrymen in the private sector. So we have to really meet and institutionalize this kind of activity. Kailangan mag-usap-usap tayo.
For God and my beloved Philippines, Almar Forsualo, SMNA News.
The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines will implement new guidelines for the use of unmanned aerial vehicle or UAVs amid growing concerns about the unauthorized use of drones. Carlo de la Peña will give us the details.
As technology advances, drones have become increasingly common, even among everyday citizens who can buy and operate them. To address this matter, the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, is set to release new guidelines. CAAP emphasized the importance of compliance with rules and regulations regarding drone flights. The new guidelines will include restrictions on flight altitude and distance, identification of no-fly zones, and comprehensive safety protocols. KOJC also addressed privacy and security concerns, emphasizing the need to respect privacy and prohibiting drones from being used for privacy violations. It's also important to know and remember that there are areas where operating drones is prohibited. Captain Ian Michael Del Castillo, head of KOJC's Flight Operations Department, noted that updated regulations can be accessed on the KOJC website. Under Memorandum Circular 010-2024, recreational drone usage is limited to a maximum altitude of 400 feet. Operating drones above crowds or within a 10-kilometer radius of aerodromes or airports is strictly prohibited.
So kung drone operator ka at hindi mo alam na ito pala ay helicopter route, no? Or ito pala ay dinadaanan ng aeroplano, pagka tumama ang drone sa aeroplano, doon tayo nagkakaroon ng problema.
Furthermore, drone operators must be licensed and drones used for commercial purposes must be registered.
If you're a hobbyist, no need.
No need.
Up to 25 kilograms. If it's just really hot. But if it's for specific use, then you would need a license for the operator and the drone should be registered.
Those found violating KOJC's regulations could face fines ranging from 300,000 to 500,000 pesos. Captain Castillo further stated that KOJC will tighten drone regulations due to ongoing violations.
Yes, and we are trying to address that by coming up with stricter regulations and more effective means of regulations. And then later on, we'll be rolling out to the different LGUs that they can actually make local ordinances based on the guidelines set for the KOJC.
For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Thailand's former Deputy Commerce Minister faced death sentence for the murder of a construction tycoon about a decade ago. The Supreme Court ruled that the millionaire's death was not an accident but carefully planned to gain access to his vast amount of assets. Chatpong Pisa Goson reports.
Justice was slow but sure. The family of a construction tycoon who died in a tragic car accident received the justice they were hoping for almost a decade after the incident. Thailand's Supreme Court upheld the death sentence for former Deputy Commerce Minister Banjing Tangpakorn, who was found guilty of murdering construction tycoon Chu Wong Setang. The case dates back 9 years ago, when the 50-year-old tycoon died in a car crash on June 26, 2015. On that fateful day, Banjing was driving a black car with Chu Wong seated beside him when all of a sudden the vehicle crashed into a roadside tree. The tycoon died from the impact while the former minister survived the deadly encounter unscathed. A week after the crash, the tycoon's 300 million baht in shares were transferred to Banjing and his close aide using falsified documents. A police investigation ruled that the crash was not an accident, with the evidence showing it as intentionally staged by the former minister and his accomplices, making it a case of premeditated murder. The tycoon's widow filed a case against the 59-year-old former minister for premeditated murder and for concealing a crime. Reporting from Thailand, I'm Chatpong Goson, your Global Citizens correspondent for SM9 News Channel.
The DICT assured that the free Wi-Fi sites they plan to establish in various parts of the Philippines will not be used as a tool for illegal activities. Creselyn Catarong has the story.
The Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, has pledged stringent measures to prevent illegal activities through its upcoming free Wi-Fi program across the Philippines. DICT Undersecretary Jeffrey Ian emphasized that proactive measures include scanning tools to monitor both the surface and dark web. This is aimed at detecting potential data breaches and instances of child pornography before they can spread.
So we'll be able, without
it's a very technical discussion, but we'll be putting in devices, we'll be putting in sensors to ensure that this network is not being used for illegal activities. For example, if you use our free Wi-Fi sites, I'm telling you right now, you can't use it for child pornography, etc. In fact, we're going the extra mile in order to make sure that that you're not misusing it.
According to the DICT official, the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA board has greenlit the Philippine Digital Infrastructure Project during its 18th meeting at Malacanang. PDIP is designed to boost broadband connectivity nationwide, particularly in remote areas, while also bolstering cybersecurity measures. USEC-D disclosed that the initiative targets the establishment of 772 free Wi-Fi sites across regions 11 and 13 in Mindanao. These sites will prioritize locations such as public schools and rural health centers.
We hope to start procurement by early next year. So progressive siya, but we should be able to complete by 2028, including yung fiber backbone. Even though we complete in 2028, the entire project is a 10-year project. So progressively, from 2025 to 2035, the entire free Wi-Fi sites that we will be building will be sustainable.
For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Kerseline Catarong, SMNI News.
A rice importer attempted to bribe the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture just to smuggle agri-products into the Philippines. Let's find out more about this report with China Torno.
The Department of Agriculture has issued a warning to importers exploiting agricultural products. One rice importer was set as an example by the agency after being caught illegally importing goods. DA Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. revealed that the importer inaccurately declared the quantity of products. Although it was labeled as processed foods, the shipment actually contained agricultural products.
Yung mga smugglers, kahit kaibigan ko, iba-blacklist ko. Because alam ko yung ginagawa na, and we're just getting proof. And kasi that's economic sabotage eh. Yung mga smugglers are destroying industry eh, by undercutting everybody because of illegal acts.
In addition, 4 more importers of rice, fish, and sugar are said to be added to be blacklisted, although the Secretary has not disclosed their names. The Secretary of DA emphasized that there will be no exemptions, even if the importers are personally known to him. Furthermore, one importer allegedly attempted to bribe him to facilitate the entry of smuggled goods.
Nahuli namin na yung container dinala doon sa combination facility, nilipat sa ibang truck para ibenta. So, nahuli namin, sinunog namin lahat. Sinuhulan ako ng initially 250,000 per container. Tapos umakyat ng 1 million per container.
As a response, the DA is set to establish a memorandum of understanding with the Bureau of Customs. This agreement will deputize DA Inspectorate and Enforcement Team members to inspect imported shipments, aiming to bolster efforts against rampant smuggling in the Philippines. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources warns the local fishermen will be greatly affected if smuggled fish flood the market, as the price of local fish will plummet due to cheaper but smuggled fish.
Yung concern din ng food safety. So kapag hindi dumadaan sa mga necessary regulatory requirements, itong mga napupunta sa palengke, aside from pwedeng maapektuhan ng presyo, nalalagay din sa alanganin, sa balad ng alanganin, ang kaligtasan ng publiko.
Meanwhile, private rice importers welcome Department of Agriculture's actions. Rowena Sadicon, lead convener of the Philippine rice industry, emphasized the need for proper processes and accurate documentation to identify those who are involved.
Siguro kailangan lang tamang proseso at saka tama yung mga documents and all, no, para makita talaga kung sino talaga to.
The cold storage examine facility on agriculture CEFA in Angat, Bulacan is expected to be operational next year. This facility will play an important role in preventing smuggled products from entering the Philippines. They also plan to establish additional CEFA facilities in Subic, Manila, and General Santos. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
The controversy surrounding Bambana Tarlac Mayor Alice Guo's birth certificate may open the door to more complaints, according to a spokesperson of the Justice Department. Those implicated in its alleged falsification could face additional charges. Margaret Gonzalez has the details.
The issue with the birth certificate of Bamban Tarlac Mayor Alice Guo has no effect on the complaint filed against her, as said by the Department of Justice or DOJ. The Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA has recommended to the Office of the Solicitor General the cancellation of Guo's birth certificate, citing alleged inaccuracies in the suspended mayor's birthplace and citizenship. DOJ spokesperson Attorney Miko Clavano emphasized that the birth certificate matter is separate from the human trafficking charges stemming from illegal pogo operations in Bamban. However, according to Clavano, individuals involved in the issuance of Guo's birth certificate could face charges if irregularities in its issuance are proven.
It might open up a new case dahil malalaman talaga natin na peke yung in-issue sa kanya na birth certificate. So we have to make sure that these institutions, kagaya ng PSA or any other agency or department that issues IDs, are protected from these types of anomalies and irregularities dahil nakaka-affect yun sa sa credibility ng institutions natin.
According to Clavano, the DOJ had already experienced discovering fake government IDs seized during raids on targeted pogo establishments. He suggested that this could be linked to operations by Chinese syndicates operating in the country.
We have had experience when raiding mga pogos and scam hubs na meron mga peking IDs din. So this might be a product of itong mga Chinese syndicates that we know are operating here in the Philippines. Yung mga crime syndicates at umaabot na po sa punto na parang transnational organized crime na po ang pumapasok dito sa Pilipinas.
Meanwhile, Solicitor General Minardo Guevara stated that they are seriously considering the PSA's recommendation to file a petition for the cancellation of Mayor Alice Guo's birth certificate. However, he emphasized that this is part of broader legal actions that cannot yet be disclosed to the public. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Margaret Gonzalez, SMNI News.
Senator Bato de la Rosa believes the Philippines could see 3 Dutertes in the Senate after the upcoming midterm elections. Carlo de la Peña has the news.
Senator Bato de la Rosa sees no issue with having 3 Dutertes in the Senate if they win in the 2025 midterm elections. According to Senator Bato, former President Digong Duterte, Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte, and Congressman Pulong Duterte have shown strong leadership qualities and resilience in the face of challenges.
Magagaling na leader yan. Nasa DNA nila yung pagka-leader na magaling na may bayag, lumalaban at hindi yan naatras sa anumang laban. That's the leaders that we need for this country.
Bato pointed out that while some may criticize the idea of 3 Dutertes in the Senate, still, it is not far-fetched or unprecedented in a vibrant democracy like the Philippines.
Kahit sabihin mong too much, dahil marami, 3 Duterte na senador, pero ang tao pa rin ang magdedesisyon kung gusto nila. That's why we have an election para i-elect ng taong bayan kung sinong gusto nilang i-elect.
The senator cited examples of family members serving together in the Senate, such as siblings Alan and Pia Cayetano, JV Ejercito and Jinggoy Estrada, and the mother-son duo of Mark and Cynthia Villar.
As I've said, kung satisfied tayo ngayon dito sa mga magkakapatid, mag-ina na nasa Senado, ako, hindi porque kasama ko sila, ha? So bakit natin i-deny yan sa mga Duterte? Lalo na kung piliin sila ng taong bayan.
To recall, Vice President Sara Duterte recently mentioned the possibility of 3 Dutertes gunning for senatorial seats, a move that Senator Bato sees as serious and could have a significant impact in the political landscape of the country. If the 3 Dutertes do enter the Senate, it's expected to strengthen the Partido Demokratiko Pilipino PDP political party once again. This assumes re-election victories for Senators Bongo, Francis Tolentino, and Bato himself. Meanwhile, Senator Robin Padilla, acting president of PDP, will continue until his term ends in 2028.
Mukhang lalakas dahil may Duterte. May Duterte. At alam natin yung followership ng Duterte. Napakalakas. So, babangon uli ang PDP laban.
For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
A day from now, millions of Iranians will return to the polls to elect former President Ibrahim Raissi's successor following his death caused by a helicopter crash more than a month ago. Melchizedek Cadis reports.
6 candidates dominated by hardliners loyal to the supreme leader will compete to be the next president of Iran on the 28th of June. Who will be the next president of Iran? Iran's Guardian Council, a powerful 12-member body assigned with overseeing elections and legislation, approved only 6 individuals out of 80 initial candidates. Of the 6 candidates, 5 of them were considered hardliners and loyal to the regime's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Khamenei urged Iranians to participate in the snap elections on Friday after the parliamentary elections in March witnessed the lowest voter turnout not seen since the foundation of Iran in 1979. Lawmaker and former Parliament Deputy Speaker Masoud Pezeshkian, who advocates dialogue with Western powers, was the only pro-reform politician approved on the list of final candidates. He is expected to have a low chance of winning the race. The candidate who will win the presidential race on the 28th of June will replace late President Ibrahim Raisi, who died from a tragic helicopter crash last month. The upcoming election was overshadowed by sanctions imposed by the U.S. Treasury Department earlier this week, which covered nearly 50 individuals and companies. Reporting from Kuwait, I am Melchizedek Cadis, your global citizen correspondent for God and for our beloved country, the Philippines.
The Pentagon chief traveled to Cambodia, a close ally of China, in an aim to boost ties. The latest trip took place after they visited the Southeast Asian nation just a few weeks ago. Anissa de Guzman has the news.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin expressed his pleasure in visiting Cambodia for a second time within a month. Austin thanked Cambodian Senate President Hun Sen for welcoming him for the second time. The Pentagon chief told Hun Sen that the U.S. remains interested in developing its defense ties with Cambodia and offered to help strengthen security in the Southeast Asian nation. China is Cambodia's largest trading partner, with both Asian nations to have survived the test of time despite the West's criticisms over their close bilateral ties. Hun Sen, who served as the former Prime Minister of Cambodia, stepped down from his post in 2023. He ruled as the country's Prime Minister for 38 years, which made him the longest-serving head of government in the nation's history. His son, Hun Manet, took over as the new Prime Minister of Cambodia. Despite his Western education background, Hun Manet pledged to follow his father's footsteps in maintaining strong bilateral ties with China. In May, Hun Sen assured that the change in leadership, which saw his son succeeding him as Prime Minister, has not changed the country's position towards China and will remain its trustworthy friend. Reporting from Thailand, I'm Anissa de Guzman, your global citizen correspondent for God and our beloved country, the Philippines.
Experts appointed by the United Nations Human Rights Council urge warring factions in Sudan to stop using starvation as a weapon of war. Gratiro Mori tells us more.
UN experts warned more than 25 million civilians in Sudan require urgent humanitarian assistance as fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces entered its 15th month. The experts accused the warring parties of using food as a weapon. They added that foreign powers providing military support to either side are involved in war crimes, without specifying any countries involved. They urged the warring parties to start inclusive political negotiations and immediately agree to a ceasefire. The UN says about 14,000 people have died and 10 million more people have fled their homes across Sudan since the fighting broke out last year. The government of Sudan, which has close ties to the military, has accused the UAE of helping fuel the war by providing weapons and support to its rival, the paramilitary rapid support forces.
However, the UAE denied accusations and slammed the army for spreading false allegations. The extent of hunger and displacement in Sudan was unprecedented and something never witnessed before, according to the United Nations. Reporting from Dubai, I'm Gratero Omori, your global citizen correspondent for SMNI News Channel.
The British King and Queen prepared a grand welcome for the Emperor and Empress of Japan during a state visit to the European nation. Hector Kikozaki will give us the details.
The Japanese Emperor and Empress were given the full splendor as they attended a state banquet at Buckingham Palace. King Charles III and Queen Camilla gave Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako a grand welcome as they embark on a 3-day state visit to Britain on Tuesday. Part of the welcome ceremony was the traditional carriage procession to Buckingham Palace. The Japanese Emperor and Empress were welcomed with traditional pomp and ceremony marked with a spectacular show of pageantry. Members of the British royal family as well as politicians joined Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako at the banquet. The trip marked the Japanese couple's second diplomatic trip overseas since Emperor Naruhito ascended the throne in May 2019. King Charles and Emperor Naruhito delivered their speeches during the banquet. The British King welcomed back the Emperor and Empress and acknowledged the centuries-old ties between their countries, while the Japanese royal recalled his time being a student in Oxford as a young man.
Your Majesties, in 1613, Tokugawa Ieyasu wrote to my forebear, King James I. He said, though separated by 10,000 leagues of clouds and waves, our territories are, as it were, close to each other. Over 400 years later, that sentiment remains at the heart of our friendship. And so it is with a sense of great affection and optimism that I propose a toast to Your Majesties and the Japanese people and to the next 400 years of Japanese-British relations. Kanpai.
We now have an even stronger sense of the deep significance of the exchange between Japan and the United Kingdom forged over so many years. I am personally pleased and also grateful to have played a part in the exchange between the two countries, having studied in the United Kingdom, during which time I interact with many people and in particular was privileged to enjoy the very warm company of members of the royal family.
The visit was also symbolic for both countries as they held more than 400-year-old ties between Japan and the United Kingdom. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, I'm Hector Kikozaki, your global citizen correspondent. For God and to my beloved country, the Philippines.
History seemed to repeat itself after an attempted military coup rocked Bolivia since the previous one took place 6 years ago. However, this time the president and the people of Bolivia joined forces to mobilize the intruders and defend democracy. The question remains as to who was the true mastermind behind the latest uprising. Was it a product of the destructive foreign interference? Is it another proxy war designed to take control of the country's vast lithium resources? Let's find out more from Federico Veloso.
In the wake of a political battle and economic crisis, Bolivia was hit by another catastrophe, an attempt to overthrow the current administration through a military coup. General Juan Jose Zuniga, who was fired earlier this week as commander of the Bolivian army, led uprising together with a group of breakaway military chiefs. In the Bolivian administrative capital of La Paz, hundreds of soldiers raided the presidential palace on Wednesday and made a forceful entry using armored vehicles to break the doors. Amid the chaos, pro-democracy protesters joined forces with the government to prevent the uprising, wherein some of them were driven away by the intruding soldiers using tear gas. In the end, the soldiers retreated and the voice of democracy won. The government arrested the 3 military leaders who initiated the uprising, including former Army Chief Zuniga, and announced 3 new heads who replaced them. Meanwhile, the CIA is being accused as the mastermind behind the military coup. Bolivia, a pro-BRICS country that showed interest in joining the bloc, owns one of the largest reserves of lithium in the world. Bolivia prefers to partner with China and Russia in developing its lithium reserves, a move that poses a huge threat to the United States' dominance in the global market. The incident happened a few weeks after Bolivian President Luis Arce met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg, where both leaders pledged to continue their partnership in energy development such as nuclear technology. The Russian Foreign Ministry condemned the failed military coup and warned against destructive foreign interference in Bolivia and other nations. This has been Federico Veloso, your global citizen correspondent for SMNI News.
And before we end, may be inspired with the words of the sun. Injustice provokes God in his anger and invites his judgment. And that's all for this edition. For more news updates, you may visit smninewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I am Franco Baranda, and this is Newsline World.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on the notification bell to keep you up to date. Also visit our official social media accounts and join our community on Viber and Telegram.